Today we see how, in fulfillment of the Lord's own words, "You will be my witnesses in Jerusalem and in Judea and in Samaria and to the uttermost parts of the world," the circle is widening. Initially, the apostles addressed the word to those who are formed within the Judaic faith in their synagogues outside Jerusalem itself, even in pagan lands. But then, when they find that there is a self-sufficiency which is sufficiently strong to exclude new truth, they have to break that mold, and then providentially the word comes to us pagans. Our light, pagan darkness, was nearly total, and yet there was an openness. We need to be careful that we, specifically as Catholics, don't fall into some form of that self-sufficiency. At times we can see traces of the work of the Spirit outside the boundaries of our own communion, and we need the humility to recognize that. It is something quite distressing when one sees believers imagining that on every level they have it all. It is one thing to have dogmatic fullness, it is another to have fullness of spiritual life and sanctity. There is much sanctity on this planet, and humility is the first ingredient of it. With regard to the huge number which reaches glory, a vision of it is given here in the Apocalypse. I, John, saw a huge number, impossible to count, a people precisely, from every nation, race, tribe, and language. They were standing in front of the throne and in front of the Lamb, dressed in white robes and holding palms in their hands. These are the people who have been brought through the great persecution. So it is addressed initially to that situation of dire struggle, where being a Christian meant being also prepared to be a martyr. Martus is a witness, and bearing witness often led to irreversible consequences, politically, socially, and indeed lethally. They will never hunger or thirst again. And here we have the shepherd leading them to springs of living water. That shepherd who reappears in the Gospel. And this is Good Shepherd Sunday, when we look into the eyes of the kalos poimen. Now, it is interesting that the Greek has this word kalos. He is the beautiful shepherd. And he has this beauty in his eyes able to attract. We see how in the Gospel of St. John, in the early stages, he passes through and people follow. He calls, and there is a magnetism in his personality. The sons of Zebedee leave their comfort zone, and the father is left with his workmen to carry on the fishing, without the two sons there. Andrew is the one who brings his important brother, Peter, and they are drawn. But then we have this ripple effect. We have found the one of whom Moses and the prophets spoke. Could it be the Messiah? Other people come from the local group, along with their reactions. Nathanael, notably, from Nazareth. Can any good thing come from there? Come and see, and he is fulminated. So too the Good Shepherd knows well how, without lifting his voice, to exercise that magnetism. Just the other day, when clearing out the home place, I was coming across pictures of school days which we had developed ourselves in the dark room, and there were a couple there from the only open church in our area on a weekday. It was the Catholic Church, which had that magnetism within it. And I looked again at these steps which I had taken when still an evangelical Protestant, and I looked again at that tabernacle, and I remember that that tabernacle was the magnet. There was something about that tabernacle, and you can ask quite a few Protestants who have had that experience, and they will tell you the same thing. But going into a Catholic church, they knew and felt that there was something there, and specifically there, the box. And the Lord, without raising his voice, is still able to call towards the box, and indeed to an encounter with what it pertains to. It is heaven on earth. It is the Lord of all, claiming that part of geography as his own. And when he wants someone to orientate his life towards the box, he is not short of ways and means to make it happen. Words from other souls also can be words from the Good Shepherd, and we can be shepherds to others. Right now, down the line, it is not quite so simple as it might have been in those days, in the sense that if one is feeling called, it is not sufficient to go anywhere at all, because one goes to some places and one will find that the work of grace might actually be undone by those who are responsible for transmitting it. I mean specifically that one might be sent to places of inadequate formation. That is dangerous, and one sees that usually a pattern emerges. Places where that is the case find that for some strange reason the numbers go down, and people also leave midstream. If one looks further afield, around the Catholic world, one will see that another pattern in parallel emerges. Places where much adoration, fidelity to our Blessed Lady, fidelity to grace and to truth on every level, seriousness of spiritual formation, authenticity of spiritual communion between the brethren, these also find something else happening without raising their voice. Just that magnetism starts again to exercise its magic, and the Lord himself, as the Good Shepherd, sends the chosen ones there rather than elsewhere. And so one wonders why. Well, the answer is not far away. The Lord knows what is good for souls, and it is too dangerous to send people to places where shepherds will not lead properly in the name of Christ. The Good Shepherd himself is kind and only wants his sheep to be treated as he would have them treated. So let us begin by honoring the Lord, and we may obtain, without huge programming or any kind of huge publicity drive, that the magnet is big enough to draw and to give vocations faithful and true to the will of God, and not the noisy will of man.